So, we're interested in causal relationships, and often the issue of internal validity gets in the way of drawing good conclusions. So, there are a number of different ways that we can get around that, in addition to doing experiments, as we'll talk about in chapter 10. But these include pattern, longitudinal design, multiple regression, so a number of different kinds of things. And we're going to focus here on patterns. So let's look at patterns, and particularly in terms of the relationship between cigarettes and smoking. First, we know that the longer a person has smoked cigarettes, the greater the probability they have of getting cancer. People who stop smoking have lower cancer rates than those who continue. Smokers' cancers tend to be in the lungs and of a particular type. Smokers who use filtered cigarettes have somewhat lower rates of cancer than smokers of unfiltered cigarettes. And people who live with smokers also have higher rates of cancer due to secondhand smoke. Each of these things is a correlation, and we know correlation by itself does not indicate causality. However, in combination, they're much more compelling. And, so we're looking at those patterns, and we're also looking for places where the patterns don't follow through, where there isn't a pattern in the way that we think there should be. So as we're thinking about, do vaccinations prevent deaths? There have been some experimental research, comparing vaccines relative to a placebo. However, a lot of the research has been correlational, and multiple studies help us be more confident about our predictions. So we know that life expectancy plunged during COVID. And you might think about how we might interpret these results. We know that in counties with low vaccination rates, there were more daily deaths, at least during this period in 2021, than there are in high vaccination rate counties. Again, how might we interpret these results? There are differences in vaccination rates by political affiliation, and we know that in Georgia, Ohio, Washington, and Texas, that those counties where President Trump got a larger proportion of the vote in the 2020 election, that there were more deaths per 100,000. And fewer for both independents and for our counties with more independents and with more Democrats. Again, how might we interpret these? Vaccination status by states is related to the number of deaths per million. How might we interpret these? And the vaccination status of people who are hospitalized for COVID is significant, or is very different across those people who have been boosted, those who have been vaccinated without a booster, and those who have been who are unvaccinated. And again, we should be thinking, how might we, interpret this? We might also be saying, so why might they have focused on hospitalizations rather than, rather than death here, or rather than illness. And, part of it is that during this period, fewer people were probably going to the doctor when they thought they had COVID, because there was reliable testing. So the only people who were self-identifying as having COVID probably were also hospitalized. Now, when we're thinking about patterns, we are thinking not just about the pattern, but what is the best explanation given this pattern? What is the best of two equal, and what is the simplest of two equal explanations? So, for example, this over here, that red feathers evolved twice, is less parsimonious. It's less likely that that might happen. Where it is more likely that red feathers would only evolve once. So one of the difficulties that many journalists have in talking about research is that they don't always pull together the pattern of research and look for a parsimonious explanation. Often they selectively present only one part of the scientific process. And in doing so, they're misrepresenting the scientific process. We are, we want to not just talk about one brick in the wall, but the whole wall and what that says. So I'm going to say goodbye here, and I'll see you in the next video. Take care.